Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, and I wanted to thank you for your viewership. And today we're going to talk about tubes, bicycle tubes specifically, and what to look for and consider when you're actually having to get a new bike tube. Obviously because of either there's something that's happened, a puncture, or maybe a blowout, I don't know. But for whatever reason, you need to get a tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the different types of tubes, what it is you need to look for, and then a few additional bonus things that I typically look for. Okay. So first of all, of course, if you have a particular bike, then the first thing you want to look for is the tire information that is found on here. It'll either be here on the sidewall somewhere, and it should tell you on the tire what type of tube can be accommodated. So for example, this one here says a 700 by 26C, or 25C, sorry. So what that's telling me, 700 is the diameter of the wheel itself, so that's a 700C, they call it a 700C wheel. And then the 25 is actually the diameter of the tire itself, so the width of the tire, so to speak. Now, when you're looking for it, there is so obviously you have something like a 12-inch wheel, you have 16-inch wheels, 20-inch wheels, 26, 27.5, 29, 700C, 650C, or B, I believe, and there's a bunch of other weird ones, 27-inch. There's actually a 26-inch, and then the 1x1 and 33/8 inch. There's several other kind of antiquated versions, but for the most part, what people have are either a 26, 20, 29, 27.5, and usually those are for the mountain bikes or BMX, or a 700C, which is typical for a road bike or something of that type. Now, once you've made that decision of what the diameter of that tire is, then you want to look at what valve type it is. So I have a couple examples here, and what I have is here is a 700C, and it says Schrader valve. So the Schrader valve is the typical one, as you can see on this one here. That is the one you just blow up with a typical pump, and then you find on most car tires. So that's the Schrader or the standard valve. And then the other one is what's called a Presta valve, which is this one here, and that is actually found on this one. And you can see this right here, and it's a little bit different because you actually have to unscrew it in order to let the air out. So you have to unscrew it before it will actually let the air out of the tire, of the tube. So once you make that decision, then you want to say, okay, obviously we talked about the width a little bit. So the width, it kind of indicates how wide of a tire the tube will accommodate, or vice versa. So for example, this one says 700 and it says 25 to 32, and that means basically it will accept a 25-inch or 25C or 25 width. I think it's in millimeters, so I don't make a mistake here. So it's 25 millimeters in width up to 32 millimeters in width. And that's what the tube will accommodate as far as the tire size, so the diameter. So that's one thing. The second thing, though, is that it will come at times vary with respect to a. Let me just get this here. Actually, let me take these two. So I have one that says 18 to 25. So you can see up here. I'll bring this up nice and close here. So 18 to 25. So it's a very narrow tube made for racing tires, more like this. And this one, of course, is the 28 to 25 to 32, as it says here. And this is more for like a commuter tire or something like that. It's a little bit wider tire than the typical racing tire. Now, with these two, of course, that's very similar. Now, the one thing I did mention was, as you can see, then of course it says 40 millimeter right here next to the valve. And that 40 millimeter is the length of the valve itself. Since these are Presta valves, that is much more common than the typical Schrader valve. But as you can see, even on this more of a deep, they call it a deep rim then you can barely have this sticking out. So typically you would want to have something that would be a little bit longer valve stem, so that you can stick out of the and give you enough space so you can actually pump up the tire and everything would be fine. So that's that. Now this one actually, because this is even deeper seated for the rim profile is actually deeper, then this barely sticks out. And this actually is actually the incorrect tube for this tire, because the valve stem is not long enough. So, and an example of that would be what I would be replacing this in this particular bike is I would replace it with this one, which has an 88 millimeter length, and you can see this is significantly longer, and you can see it will definitely stick out of the rim to be able to pump it up and things like that and not have any issues. So that's why. So to kind of recap a little bit, so you have your wheel diameter, okay, whatever that wheel diameter is. Then you have the actual diameter of the tire to consider. You have to determine what the valve type is, and then the valve stem length as well. Now, after all of that, then there is actually some other considerations. For example, there's different types of, most of them are butyl, or they're made from butyl. That's the type of rubber. But some of them may be something like self-sealing. So do you want to have something with some liquid in it, some junk that would be able to seal if you get a puncture or something like that. There's others that may say thin wall or racing style or something like that. Or maybe something may have some sort of a reinforced piece that would be part of the tube. Not very common. I'm trying to think of that, and it's not very common that I can think of. But the self-sealing is definitely very common, and that's typically the way that the tubes are described here. So as always, go ahead and click the subscribe button and notification bell, etc., all the ad nauseum stuff, so that you can be notified of new content as I put it out. And thanks for coming to my channel, and have a good day.